Ah, how's it going, everybody? This is Mike, and I'd like to talk to you about the marathon that I just did with the Dirty Harry films, all 5 of them that I watched this weekend. I watched 2 of them Friday night. I got started kind of late, so I watched the other 3 on Saturday night. This was not quite a Ryan Chataway 24-hour marathon experience, but I'm working up to that. I have to work up to that a bit slowly. This was kind of fun. Now, I've never seen any of these movies. These were all made between 1971 and 1988. And of course, during those years I was working, and most of those years I was working nights. And that meant that my opportunities for going out to see movies they were very limited, and I had to be selective. So I decided at some point that watching Clint Eastwood blow people away at close range right in the face was probably low on my list of priorities. So I just didn't go to see those movies. Now, flash forward many years later, and I've discovered that most of these films are being sold at Big Lots for $3 a piece, and I started, grabbing them up. And they were sitting on the shelf for a long time, gathering dust, and I thought, okay, let's do this, and let's do it right. Watch them all at once, get comparisons side by side, and I'm glad I did. It was a lot of fun. So this might be something I'll do with other directors, other actors, other genres later on. We shall see. So the first Dirty Harry film, well, first let me say that it's obvious that Harry Callahan is actually the Terminator in disguise, because nothing can kill this guy. I mean, he can be inside of a glass elevator going up the side of a building very slowly, and 20 guys on the ground with machine guns firing into the glass for about 15 minutes, and Harry Callahan will walk out, and then he will proceed to put away all of these guys with one perfect shot each person. It happens over and over again in all these films. So obviously he's an alien or a robot or something like that, but it's a very good character, and I can't imagine anybody else but Clint Eastwood playing it. Although I found out when I was researching Wikipedia, and a lot of you probably already know about this, that when they were trying to make the first film, Clint Eastwood was not number 1 on the list of people they wanted to play Dirty Harry. The character was written as somebody in his 50s, and Clint Eastwood was a little bit young at that time. He was only 41. So they wanted John Wayne, they wanted Frank Sinatra. I think John Wayne was the first choice, and then Frank Sinatra. They considered Robert Mitchum, Steve McQueen, Burt Lancaster. Who else? Yeah, that's hard to believe. Can you imagine? Can you imagine John Wayne as Dirty Harry? I can't, quite frankly. But anyway, I'm glad they got Clint Eastwood. They had to rewrite the character a little bit. So the first Dirty Harry film, directed by Don Siegel, who was a terrific director, many classic films in different genres, such as Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Crime in the Streets, a film that I talked about a few videos ago. Really a good director. Now, this first film is classified as a film noir by the Bible here. And let me read you the first paragraph of their article about Dirty Harry. Gives you kind of an overview of what these people thought the film was telling people. Okay, where am I? Here we go. An early scene in Dirty Harry both celebrates and critiques the central theme of the film. While eating lunch at a diner, Harry spots a robbery in progress, and with hot dogs still in hand, he foils the crime. After cornering one of the criminals, Harry taunts him to escape, threatening to shoot him if he has any bullets left in his gun. The gun is empty, and Harry leaves the robber in other hands and strolls back to the diner to finish his lunch, after single-handedly destroying a city block. The criminals were caught, and several of them shot down, but in the process, a vendor's business was ruined, a car wrecked, and a fire hydrant exploded, spewing a huge ejaculation over this macho combat. The audience is made both to contemplate the destruction and to wonder what person would wreak such havoc in the name of preserving law and order. So there you have a very interesting overview and critique of some of the central conflicts in being a viewer of these movies. Now, something else, another overriding theme of all the Dirty Harry films is that Harry Callahan is against, well, he's not against the system, because obviously he's working for it. He's for law and order. He's for capturing and prosecuting criminals. But the theme here is that the system is failing the public because too many of these criminals get to walk away, or they get let out of prison, or they don't get prosecuted in the first place because of illegal searches or failure to read somebody their rights or police brutality. So Harry Callahan is speaking out against that, and he gets the audience's sympathy very easily because most people, I think, feel that way. People in this society, this country, we feel that way. Now, of course, we're all a bunch of hypocrites. We feel that way until we are the ones who are the victims of an illegal search or police brutality or something of that nature. So a lot of conflict going on here. The first film is very dark and very stylish, and of course you have the beautiful skyline and environment of San Francisco going up and down the hills and all the beautiful buildings and everything to look at while all this stuff is going on. So in this film, Dirty Harry is asked to bring in this crazy serial killer known as the Scorpio, which was a direct takeoff on the Zodiac killer, who was a real-life criminal in that particular area of the world at the time. The criminal is played by Andy Robinson, who I call Andrew Robinson. Wow, what a great performance. He was very young when he did this, his very first film, and of course I know him as one of the characters in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, a guy named Cardassian named Garrick. I had never seen him as a young actor before. He was terrific. So also in the film we have Harry Guardino as Lieutenant Al Bressler, Renny Santoni as Dirty Harry's partner, Chico Gonzalez. We have John Mitchum, who is the younger brother of Robert Mitchum, and he played Inspector Frank DiGiorgio. Also an actor named Albert Popwell. How's that for a name? Albert Popwell, who played the bank robber at the beginning of the film that was being, had the gun pointed at his head. And this guy played in 3 other Dirty Harry films, didn't play in the last one, all different characters. He must have been a very good friend of Clint Eastwood or something. So the script was originally called Dead Right, and it's written by Harry Julian Fink and Rita Fink. They were a husband and wife team. And the cinematography, which was absolutely gorgeous, was done by Bruce Surtees, who also did the cinematography for Sudden Impact, the 4th film. Fantastic movie, very beautifully shot. Beautiful music by Lalo Schifrin, who did all the soundtracks to the film except for number 3. Okay, then we get up to, that's Dirty Harry, right? Then we get up to the second film, Magnum Force, which came out in 1973. And this film, let's see, what do I know about this film? Okay, this is directed by Ted Post. And this time the screenplay was by John Milius and Michael Cimino. Co-stars were Hal Holbrook as Lieutenant Neil Briggs, David Soul as one of the officers. Okay, there were four rookie traffic cops, David Soul, Tim Matheson, Robert Urich, and Kip Niven, who turned out to be sort of a vigilante team within the police force, who were they were also so dissatisfied and disenchanted by the system and criminals going free that they started their own execution force. And Dirty Harry had to basically end up fighting against his own cops, because when they revealed themselves to him and asked him to join because they thought that he would have the same kind of sensibilities that they did. When he refused to join them, then they went after him. Very good movie. Wasn't quite as good as the first one. It didn't have as much of the style and the darkness and the film noirish aspect of it, but still a pretty good film. John Mitchum came back once as DiGiorgio. Margaret Avery, who was later on in Color Purple, did a dynamic bit role as a prostitute. Albert Popwell in this one played the pimp, who has a nice little confrontation with her. And there's another actor who had a very minor bit role in the film, just for about 10 hot seconds. He had a good close-up. I recognize his face. An actor named Will Hutchins played a stakeout cop. He had one line. And Will Hutchins, if any of you remember that name, he was an actor back in the late 50s and early 60s. He was on a TV cowboy show called Sugarfoot back in 1957 to 1961. And later on, he played parts in Warner Brothers films where he was under contract. And all through the 60s, he did television and movies. And then later on, he kind of struggled as an actor and had trouble getting work. And I have a feeling he must have been a good friend of of Clint Eastwood, because Eastwood did a lot of things to bring his friends back into films when they were having hard times getting work. So I have a feeling that was the case, but it was kind of good seeing his face like that. It was quite a surprise. Okay, that's Magnum Force. All right. Now, the third film is called The Enforcer. Now, this one to me is very different. To me, this one is much more like an extended episode of a TV cop show. It even had TV cop show music. It didn't have Lalo Schifrin in this one. And not a bad little film. It moved very quickly, and it had a lot of good things in it. But I didn't find it to be quite as engaging and involving as the first two films. Now, this one, let's see. Dirty Harry was asked to infiltrate or bring to justice this group of urban vigilantes that called themselves the People's Revolutionary Strike Force, a direct takeoff on the Symbionese Liberation Army, which was another real life thing that was going on about that time. And the similarities were pretty astounding. So helping him in this, we had Tyne Daly as a woman named, well, she was an officer, Inspector Kate Moore, who was assigned to be Dirty Harry's partner. And it was there was a thing in the film where they were trying to get more women into these roles, and of course there was a lot of resistance, a lot of condescension, and she played the part very well. She turned out to be a very heroic character. Tyne Daly is a good actress. Harry Guardino came back. Bradford Dillman came in as Captain Jerome McCain. He had a lot of sparring with Dirty Harry because they disagreed on many things. Albert Popwell was back in it again, this time as a sort of a mixture of a good and bad character named Big Ed Mustafa. How's that for a name? John Mitchum, once again, is back as DiGiorgio, but unfortunately he dies in this film, very heroically. Let's see, what else? Directed by James Fargo, I don't know much about him. Screenplay by Sterling Silliphant, who did a lot of television shows. Maybe that's why it seemed like a television movie. Now, I will say that this movie did move very fast, and as I said, it had some good things in it, but it's not one of my favorites in the series. Then we get to Sudden Impact, which to me goes back to the style and the dark aspect of the first film. I thought this was very, very well done. Let's see. So this is the only one that was produced and directed by Clint Eastwood himself, and maybe that's why it was so good. Co-starring with him was Sandra Locke, who was his girlfriend at the time for many years, and she played a character named Jennifer Spencer. She was a painter who, many years before, I think it's supposed to be 10 years before the film took place, she and her younger sister, who was only a high school kid at the time, were kidnapped and raped by a group of men, and one woman brutally raped and terrorized. And the young girl is so traumatized by it that she is now completely catatonic, can't hear or speak or move. And her older sister is also very traumatized, but she wants to get revenge on the people who did this. So she sets out to be an executioner. And Dirty Harry gets to know her socially and thinks there may be a connection between her and some of these killings, but he's not sure. It's a very good film. I thought that they did a good job. It's let's see, who else is in this? Pat Hingle is in it as a small town police chief who is upset that Dirty Harry has come to a small town to be the big city policeman, to interfere in his life and all that stuff. Bradford Dillman is back again, but this time he's a captain, but he has a different name. It's Captain Briggs this time. Albert Popwell is back as a good character named Horace King, who is a good friend of Harry's. Then we have an actress that I never heard of before named Audrey T. Neenan, Neenan, who plays a very vivid, violent character named Ray Parking, who is a lesbian living in this small town. She's angry, she's bitter, she's tough, and she's also part of this gang that raped these two women. So she's on the list to be executed. This is very well done. Another thing that's interesting about this movie, there's a brief scene in a coffee shop in San Francisco that Dirty Harry supposedly goes into every day of his life and gets the same cup of coffee and then walks out. And the waitress who's pouring the coffee is played by an actress named Mara Corday, who is an old friend of of Clint Eastwood's. They were under contract together back at Universal back in the 1950s, and were in a film called Tarantula, where she was the star of the film. He had a very small part, and supposedly they've been friends ever since. And he put her in several of his films in the 1970s. So it's kind of nice. Okay, Sudden Impact, highly recommended. I had never seen Sondra Locke act before, and I always heard bad things about her, that it was just very much a nepotism thing between him and his girlfriend. I thought she did a very good job. I was surprised. So, all right, Sudden Impact. Very pleasant surprise. Now, it brings us to the last film in the series in 1988. This is Deadpool. This was also the most expensive film. It cost $31 million to make, and at the box office was 36.7 or something like that. So it didn't do all that well, and maybe the whole thing was getting tired by then. Eastwood still looked good. This probably has the least... well, the least involving story, but some of the aspects of the story are not bad. The Deadpool is literally a pool of people who are betting that certain celebrities might die within a certain frame of time. There's always this idea that 3 celebrities will die in sequence. Whenever one dies, there are going to be 2 more. Anyway, so some people thought it was kind of a macabre idea that they were having a bet on which celebrities were going to die. Well, it turned out that some of these people that were on the different lists were actually dying. So one of the people who had this list and was suspected of maybe being the killer, excuse me, happened to be a film director named Peter Swan, played by Liam Neeson. Now, Peter Swan is the guy who makes these low-budget, violent horror films, and he's in the process of making one of these films when the movie begins here. So the whole thing is very convoluted. Turns out someone is pretending to be him for all kinds of bizarre reasons. This is a pretty good movie. It has good actors in it. Patricia Clarkson is in it. She's one of my favorites. I like her very much. She plays a newswoman named Samantha Walker, who gets involved with Harry, and she has a lot of ambivalence about being this kind of journalist. She's not sure if she's beginning to see that how intrusive it is for people to run up to murder scenes and shove a camera in somebody's face and say, how do you feel about what just happened to your sister, or something like that. As I said, Liam Neeson is in it. He does a very good job and kind of an unlikable character. Dirty Harry's partner in this one is a guy named Al Quan, played by Evan Kim. Very unique little character, and this is one partner that does not get killed, so that's good. David Hunt, an actor I never heard of, plays the actual killer. Jim Carrey is in it, billed as James Carrey. He plays a quirky actor, singer, rock singer named Johnny Squares, who is killed off very quickly in the film while he's lip-syncing the song Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. So, but anyway, that's pretty freaky. And another one of my Star Trek heroes, Mark Alimo, who plays the Cardassian Gul Dukat in Deep Space Nine. He was on for about 1 hot minute playing a bodyguard in a kind of a violent fight scene between him and Dirty Harry. So it's kind of fun to see him too. So this film, as I said, was let's see who did direct this? Oh, Buddy Van Horn. I have no idea who Buddy Van Horn is. Anyways, I said the end of the series, and I can't say this is a great film, but it's not that bad. So all in all, I've taken almost 19 minutes of your time to talk to you about this. Thank you for listening, and so I think I might do some more of these marathons after a while. I'm very glad that I did this, and I gave myself a chance to break out of my own personal comfort zone a little bit. So I'm going to try to do that a little bit more. So, all right, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about Dirty Harry, or you think about me, or anything else. Good night.